MIT, did her master's at UC Berkeley. She's the founder of Research, Action, and Design, and a coordinator for RightsCon 2015.
Hi.
Let me just make sure.
Hello.
Morning.
So I think we will make sure how it's going to work over there and what you guys are going to see on the screen. But I will just begin talking. So thank you, all of you who came in, and thank you to Becky Hurwitz, who is my actual old roommate from college. And I wanted to bring her in because she's doing some really amazing work when it comes to using social media and social justice. Her work has taken her around the world, almost to every continent, and Myanmar, where President Obama followed her. Or I don't know. There's a joke in there. It's too early. I'm in Chicago. So basically, we're going to ask her to talk about what she does and how she's able to use new media and even old media for social justice. So please, can we give a round of applause to Becky Hurwitz? Thank you for joining us, Becky. So Becky's in New York, I'm in Chicago, and you guys are in Syracuse, so this is a lovely, lovely long-distance lecture. So just to start off, Becky, can you tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got into it?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, so I can tell you first about Research Action Design, which you mentioned. I just started this up with 2 other partners, and we're a worker-owned co-op. We do participatory research, media making, and technology design to build the power of grassroots movements. And so what that usually means is that we're doing research or making media, sometimes developing websites and or mobile tools with folks who are movement groups, social movement groups. Let's see.
Can you give us an example of that? What does that mean, making media tools for social groups? So what kind of groups and what kind of media tools?
Yeah. Can you guys see links? If I share through links, is that?
I can click it.
Okay. Well, here.
I can.
Here's an example of a site that we just launched. It's called Contratados, and this is a project that we did in partnership with a group called Centro de los Derechos Migrantes. They are a group that organizes with laborers on both sides of the U.S.-Mexico border. They do a lot of legal work in the States and a lot of legislative advocacy work in the States. And they do a lot of just direct labor organizing with people who are migrant workers. They've done a lot of work to research the labor practices of both recruiters and just kind of people who are hiring migrant workers in the States. And this was a project that we did with them that we're calling the Yelp for migrant workers, and it makes that research accessible for people who are traveling here to work. So it's a website. It's also a phone service you can call up, and you can leave reports about your recruiter or your boss. It's also a media repository. So we developed a bunch of audio PSAs, which are information, like know your rights information about labor in the States. And there's also a series of webcomics in there, which are being printed and distributed in labor halls. Again, know your rights information. So this is a really good example of what we do. We developed this together with CDM, the organization, and we worked with them and their membership, who are workers, to design the system. So we helped them design workshops, and they took those workshops into labor halls. And labor halls are places where migrant workers are going to get their first sort of contracts with recruiters, who then make a deal with them to bring them to the States and then help them get hired. And so they took these workshops into labor halls and did design work with the workers and tried to really figure out how people wanted to access this information. We had some ideas to start. We thought maybe a website, so we did a lot of discussions with people about how they got online. We found out pretty early on, actually, that it took a lot of the workers most of a day to get online, because they'd have to travel to a computer first and then get online. So then we realized that we needed to make this media more accessible in other ways. So we thought about developing phone accessible stuff and radio accessible media, and then worked with CDM to figure out a distribution plan. So they actually have gotten the audio PSAs not just on the website, but also onto Radio Bilingue, which is a radio show that plays around, in both U.S. and Mexico. So they're really thinking about a pronged approach to distribution too.
So I apologize. I don't know if you guys see a delay. I'm seeing a delay, but it's fine. I'm really excited about your the way you've gotten into this, because so some of the facts are really valuable. You know, I make a big stink about not saying, well, everyone's on the internet all the time, but rather acknowledging who might be on the internet or who might have access to certain media, and how we need to affect the conversation for those who are in different situations that might be difficult for us to acknowledge. So I really appreciate you describing the robust platform need. Also, many of the students, not all of them, are currently taking COM 117. They will all eventually take it, where they have to build a PSA. So I have two questions for you.
Yeah.
One is, can you talk a little bit more about what participatory media is?
Yes.
And maybe some of the things that you found valuable in creating PSAs.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So participatory media, when we say that, we're thinking about the whole process of making media, everything from production and conceiving of the idea of what's going to go into your media, to the message, to how you distribute the media. And we're thinking about breaking down barriers between who gets to make decisions about how media gets made, and who gets to make decisions about how it gets distributed, to try to break down the idea that they're experts, and to make sure that the voices that are heard in media are become more sort of becomes more participatory. So to give people better access, and also and greater voice in media, both through the making and through the end message. So like as I was describing with the last project, one way to do participatory development is to actually do hands-on workshops with people designing a platform. And you could do the same with media messages. So with the audio PSAs, we designed like characters for those. And we did it, again, in this like very sort of participatory, hands-on, workshop-y way.
So how did you get into this work? So we both have the same undergraduate degree in primarily theory. So our media studies program was a theoretical program with lots of opportunities for engagement through Media Lab and other sort of novel ways of using media. But especially when we're talking to students at Newhouse, which are generally, for the most part, trained towards commercial media and mainstream media, how did you get into this, and what recommendations would you have for students that, applied media students who are excited about engaging other communities and making a change?
Yeah. When we were in undergrad, actually probably around the same time that we were living in the same dorm space, I was getting more applied skills, and because up till then it had been really theoretical about media studies, and towards the end I really got a lot of opportunities to develop my photography and my documentary film skills. So I got to work on a book that one of the professors that I had been researching with was writing and publishing, and that was all about photography. So we were doing documentary photography work in Bhutan, and around the same time I realized that documentary video seemed like it was occupying a similar space in terms of media making and storytelling. So I got involved in just sort of, I asked around documentary film companies to see if they needed interns, and started interning. And so when I left school, I really was pursuing documentary photography and film, and I did that for a while. I shot for more projects and stories and little books and things. And as I was working with people, actually, I think the real turning point was this one project that I worked on in Thailand with Burmese refugees. I was working with a lot of organizations and a lot of unaffiliated people, and we were just documenting their lives in the border area between Thailand and Burma. And as I was working with people, they were asking me if I could help them a lot with their websites. And I realized that in addition to the fact that everyone can take photos for their own selves and of their own lives and document their own stories, that I could sort of step aside as a photographer, and that there were much more valuable things that I could be doing together with these folks. And have really started moving in the direction of doing more technology and media design with people rather than the media making as like a sole author, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So you've had the opportunity, click over to me. So you've had the opportunity to really explore a wide variety of media making strategies, and you've sort of settled, I don't want to say settled, but at the moment come into this research, action, and design. Can you tell us a little bit about what that cooperative does and the needs you have found in the media environment that you can answer with your cooperative?
Yeah. So we don't just do media and tech development. We also do research, participatory research, and we see that they're all very much combined. I mean, at its best, what we do is we get to work with movement groups, and we do a participatory research study, which means we design the research questions with the movement group, and then do that research together. And then whatever comes out of the research informs whatever goes into the media, and then we would design the media together also and push that out together. So we see all of these things as being very much related, and so that's what we do together. Sometimes we do one or more pieces in isolation. So we're just finishing up working on this project called Out for Change, the Transformative Media Organizing Project, and we did a big participatory research study with about 7 organizations that do LGBTQ organizing across the states. We worked together to design survey questions and interview questions, and distributed this nationwide, got about 300 responses, and are working on the results right now. We also, together, were sharing media practices throughout the year. So that's an example of something that we do together, and that's kind of a blending of doing research and also really skill sharing around media use and media for organizing. So that's kind of a sweet spot for RAD. And Contratados was a RAD project. So we what we do ranges quite a bit, but we have these sort of 3 areas of skill, and we work with partners very closely to define whatever project that we're going to design. So it takes a lot of different forms.
Awesome. So I'll actually, they can see the links on the page, but I will be sure to share them and allow with the students in my end of week email. I have 3 other questions I'd really like to ask, and then I want to open it up to the students for any questions that they might have. One is, we talked a little bit about DAT movement, right? The movement that's happening on campus at the moment, and I just think that it's really exciting for you to be talking to us about how to mobilize populations, how to affect change using new media. And I would really love for you to talk a little bit about your perspectives on hashtag activism. So much of the discussion around it is, well, you know, hashtag bring back our girls is not, and I put air quotes around this, is not bringing back our girls, right? And often, especially in public discourse, we hear hashtag activism being derided as slacktivism. And yeah. I think that especially among younger generations, the level of engagement online is essential both to who they are and their place within the world. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, that dynamic, your opinions, and what you see as moving online activism into the real world.
Yeah, that's a really interesting topic. And I was starting, the sort of slacktivism line of thinking is sort of where I was leaning for a while, thinking that hashtags and hashtag activism it's very hard to convert it to real life wins, whether that's legislative or sort of social broader opinion changes. But I've been working on this project. You mentioned RightsCon, which is a global event around internet rights that brings together activists and government legislators and also corporate techies to talk about issues of human rights on the internet. And this event's going to take place in the Philippines. So I've been in the Philippines a lot. Just got back from a month there this week. So when I was there, I was talking to some people about hashtag activism in the Philippines, and they were telling me that actually it's been really, really effective there, which is a really interesting counter example, I think, to what we hear and read about a lot. So the example, one example of a really successful campaign there is around anti-corruption. So corruption is rampant. It's a major problem. Various branches of government manage to siphon off tons and tons of money for personal use. And so as one way of calling out corruption, somebody started up a hashtag where anytime a government official claimed that something positive had happened, some positive change, and that they'd been a part of it, people started doing fact-finding to try to figure out if that was true, whether or not that official actually voted for the thing or actually was a part of making it happen, and then would call them out with a certain hashtag if it was false. And so that has actually led to a number of really public conversations with legislators who took credit for things that were not their own work, and has developed the conversation about anti-corruption. And I thought that was really interesting. I think it asks a lot of questions about why hashtag activism might be really successful in some places or in some situations and not in others. I think with that example, people who are online in the Philippines who are talking about anti-corruption have been online for a while doing the same thing. They were the bloggers in the Philippines who started their blogs solely to talk about government and to have a secondary voice to the media, to the popular media. So they're really active already. They already have a really active audience. So I think anybody who's getting involved in those hashtag conversations there is part of a group of people who are likely to go put their feet on the street or really pressure legislators offline also. So it's like it asks questions about who you're reaching online and who's online to start. I think in the States, there are more people online, just like there's more of the population online in the States. So percentage-wise, there are fewer people who are also very politically active online. So you can get involved in a conversation that's a hashtag conversation, but you don't necessarily have the means, the time, or the inclination to then also push that to go put pressure on whomever you're trying to put pressure on or to bring about the change you want to see.
I think that's particularly interesting, and we'll talk a little bit about Black Twitter next week in class and how Black Twitter has actually been able to affect change in the real world with hashtags, primarily because of the people who are engaging in the conversation and the way the hashtags are then subsequently filtered out into mainstream media. So I think the primary example that is often given is canceling the book deal for the juror in the Trayvon Martin case. There was a book deal associated for one of the jurors, and it was widely criticized online, and then that ended up getting canceled. So then my last question for you is a little bit, recommendations for students who are interested in affecting change with their media knowledge and skills, but also how you cope with dealing with this. So I'm very emotionally open with my students to the point where, I acknowledge that working in social justice or just being aware of social justice is overwhelming, taxing, and it feels like a Sisyphusian task. So Sisyphus was doomed to push the boulder up the hill, and it would eventually fall back down every time. So my question to you is, how do you keep going every day and find joy in your work with so much negative information out there? And what words of wisdom would you have to students who are eager to affect change using media?
Yeah. I think the first part in terms of, well, I'll go with wisdom first, or suggestions. If you have media making skills, and you're all getting media making skills right now in school, from what I hear from Charisse, so there's place for you.
And from what you hear from your
What's
hello.
That? Okay.
Oh, I said, and what you hear from your sister, because your sister is a
Oh,
Newhouse
yeah.
alumna.
Also, my sister's a grad from Newhouse. She did journalism school as a grad student there. So, yeah. So if you have these media making skills, there's a place for you to do social justice work for sure. I mean, a lot of groups that do organizing are increasingly doing organizing online, and they need to be smart about their messaging. They need to be smart about using different platforms and thinking through these questions of like who's on these platforms and what issues can we move or what change can we really expect. And then also like how can we design media, like what do we know about media making and how can we share those skills so that we make sure that the voices that are being heard through that media become more varied and really representative of our lived condition. So you have, and you're getting skills to get involved for sure. I think about how to stay positive. I think one of the things that is really important to me is relationships. And so actually the way that we do our work, this participatory work, is really important to keeping to staying positive and remembering why I'm doing the work that I'm doing. And it's because it's about people. So if I'm really working with people and we're sort of equal partners in the work that we're doing and we're getting to know each other and we're being honest with each other, then there's just value every day in me doing that work with people. And it's just a really personal value. And it's not even necessarily about a larger sort of justice win. And yeah, and then I think, Charisse was telling me about your on-campus movement right now and about some of, not just the positive stuff, but also some of the sort of more critical voices. And the messages that people are sending about those activists on campus are really similar. You'll hear them echoed through about every movement through time, that people are wasting their time or they're just making noise, they're just being agitators. So really looking at the way that just looking at movements through history and across the globe, even in the current moment, and sort of understanding your potential power and also the ways that the people will try to criticize it and getting a sense of perspective through that, I think is really helpful.
Thank you. All right, so can we give Becky a round of applause, please, for sharing her story, and I will open it to the floor. So do we have any students who have any questions, or Joe, if you have any questions?
Yeah. Does anyone have questions? I'll let you guys go first. Remember, introduce yourself.
Oh, okay. So what do you...
This is, by the way, this is Alexa Diaz.
Hi, or hi. So what do you do if an organization reaches out to you, but you don't necessarily agree with their views?
Reaches out to you to do some work together or something?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, what are they reaching out for?
Like if they just reach out to you to help grow their movement, but you don't agree with like what they want to do. Or like their goals of their organization.
Oh, okay. Well, well, if you don't agree with their political position, then you don't have to work with them. If you believe, if it's really counter to something you think is good, you don't have to do that. But I would say if it's their approach that you disagree with, then I would stick through that and see if maybe their approach has value just based on how they know they want to work.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I have a question. Hi. What's the one most useful media content making skill that you learned either on the job or through your education through school? I know it's hard to choose only one.
Yeah. So I want to say, and this is something that I think I could get much better at, but I think it's really just basic graphic design skills.
What do you mean by basic graphic design skills?
Like if you have to write, God forbid, you have to write a PowerPoint presentation, You also have to make it look decent so that people want to look at it and don't want to look away from your work. So if you can do basic graphic design and make a thing look sharper, somehow more professional, more clear, then it really is valuable. And the same with written reports. You have to write written stuff all the time. And if you know how to just like add in a few elements or like format your titles differently than your body text, it's going to make the thing look better, and I think it really helps. So can I say a secondary skill that I think is really useful is the video making. I think everybody wants to make videos all the time, and if you can help people make like short 1 to 2 minute videos when you're out in the street, when you're in an office, whenever, it's just really helpful. It's a really good, easy skill.
And on that note, I will ask you, do you have a favorite video that you helped someone make? One that pops out that you were really excited about doing?
I didn't have as much a role in this one as, like, I can only take small credit for being a small part of this one. But here's this one campaign that I just was working at MIT with actually one of my rad partners, Sasha Costanza-Chalk. And one of the things we did was we taught a studio class about collaborative design. And so we would set up partnerships with movement groups and students, and they would develop projects together. And it could take any form, any media form. It could be written, it could be performed, it could be web-based. And they just had to figure out how to work together collaboratively on something that the movement group was already working on. So this is an example of, it's actually animated GIFs. It's not a long-form video at all. But can you see that link?
Yeah, I think so. I'm sharing it.
Cool. So this student group worked with the organization called Detention Watch Network. They have a big campaign against this detention quota that the Obama administration has set, which is 34,000 people have to at any given time be sleeping in detention center beds per night, which is just outrageous. And anyway, they're trying to raise visibility around this idea that there's a quota, and then obviously change that in order to shift the whole detention system. But so this group, what they did was they set up an overhead camera and just shot really short videos of people tossing and turning in beds, and then made these animated GIFs from those videos. And I think they're really beautiful, and it's like just a really simple idea, and it helps this organization push their campaign and make it just help them build a piece of media that was really good looking and got some attention for their campaign.
Nice. Ben?
Awesome.
Hello. Okay. This is like kind of going off of Joe's question. Is there like anything that you've learned either from your actors or from anything that you might have like put out or acted in? Is there anything like techniques that you've learned to make kind of like it when you're on camera to make it more appealing and effective?
In interview context?
Yeah, I mean just like as a general acting kind of like in front of the camera sense.
It's funny that you asked that while I'm sitting here in a window. I mean, let's see. Charisse probably has some really good answers for this, and maybe even more than me. Good lighting, good sound. Okay, so you can get away with having bad video quality. I'm not saying have bad video quality, but you kind of can. But you can't get away with bad audio.
Okay.
So always make sure your audio is good.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. All right, on that note, we will say goodbye to Becky and pass it over to Joe. But can we please get one more round of applause and thank you for coming on. And I will be sure to share all of your links, and we can continue this conversation online, so this will be posted to YouTube, and you will be part of our virtual speaker series.
Thanks, Charisse. Thanks
Thank
for having
you.
me.
you.
Thanks.